investing in a bunch of companies. And the one thing I will say as I look forward is we've tried to stay away from the momentum plays as much as they've made a lot of money for investors in the very short term. You know, if you're a company going out with a preclinical asset and going public at $1 billion valuation, that's very hard for us to get comfortable with, because fundamentally, when the music stops 6 months or a year or 2 years from now, those companies may have a lot of cash on the balance sheet, but they don't have any. They won't have as much underlying value as a company with a real, either a real competitive differentiation or a real clinical asset that you can continue to fund. So that's something we keep in mind. And it's interesting. We heard a little bit about the scarcity of talent. I think in the life science space, the real scarcity right now is the CFOs. There are a lot of bankers who have left the banking space and come to be a CFO, but so many companies have gone public. There just aren't enough knowledgeable people with experience in going public to really support it. I have a company that's confidentially filed right now, and the effort to find a CFO was well above and beyond what we had expected, just because everybody's public. And then lastly, I think one of the big, oncology is still a very big space for us, probably the majority of the space, but it's amazing how it can really shift on a dime. A year ago, 2 years ago, it was all about targeted therapies, molecular-based therapies. This year, if you went to ASCO, it was all about immunotherapy. So it's, we invest now with a horizon of 3 to 5 years, probably even 7 years, much longer, I think, than the tech space. And it's amazing how the whims, even within our industry, can just shift so quickly.
And staying on life science, but switching to one of, when I take a look at any article that talks about, the 15 biggest trends over the next couple of years, every single article has digital health, digital health, digital health. I know Lisa, Easton has done a lot in that space. We represent a few companies in which you're the lead investor.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Digital health, I think, though, is something where it's life science, but it also is a combination of technology and life science. And what often happens is, and what we see quite a bit, is that these companies will come and they don't really know where they belong. Are they really are they really life sciences, or are they really tech companies? And we've actually seen a number of our portfolio companies come to programs like this and be tracked in the tech track as opposed to the life science track. So digital health is a really interesting thing. When we look at digital health or healthcare technology, it is an opportunity to take data, to provide better patient care, but also to leverage efficiencies. And that's actually a big trend right now that we're seeing. It's this Affordable Care Act that has changed fundamentally the processes of which we provide healthcare. In the hospital setting, the post-acute care setting, and right now trying to determine where we're going to be providing that health care. So data analytics, monitoring, and everybody says, well, it's great, we're going to monitor this, we're going to monitor that, we're going to know all this data. And quite frankly, most of the companies will come to us and they'll say, we'll monitor that, and we'll ask, well, what do we do with that information? And then the blank stare comes at you. And that's what's really important. So you have technology, the ability to do things, and having technology in it doesn't take away from that basic need to say, what's the goal, what am I doing it for, and is there a real commercial need? And then when you look at getting these kinds of companies into the marketplace, it's not just, oh gosh, I now don't have that regulatory bar I have to get over. That FDA is not going to be breathing down my back. Well, guess what? You also don't have the protection of IP. You don't have a clear pathway into what your next round for capital is, and what it's going to take specifically in terms of commercial traction to get you out there. That question of scalability is really important. So it's a great trend. It's great information, but I really, when we look at it, we're looking at things that are scalable, that have the ability to fit into the ecosystem, that not only support providing better care, but a better process, and really decreasing the cost of care, because that's the #1 pressure. As Stacy talks about oncology, part of the reason you're moving to these other types of therapies is it costs too much. And guess what? The world can't afford it anymore, and even the US can't afford it.
Thank you. Reese, corporate venture side. Corporate venture took off in 2014. Highest amount invested since the height of the bubble, 2000. It seems like 1 out of every 5 deals I'm doing is a strategic, both on the life science side and the tech side, that is investing. So what are the corporations, the corporate venture folks, what are they investing in? And also, how early, do you guys go? I mean, I'm just familiar with a couple of companies that are actually setting up incubators, accelerators, internally. But maybe you can talk about that.
Sure. So happy to talk about those topics. So, first of all, as you heard, some of the statistics that Stephen talked about right at the beginning, and corporate venture capital is surging as well. I'll throw out a couple of numbers for you. I've heard it. I've seen statistics that say since 2009, corporate venture capital dollars have tripled into the market. I've seen that 48% of the Fortune 500 now have corporate venture capital groups. When you look at the Q1 data, corporate venture capital was, I think it was 16.6% of the dollars invested in 19% of the deals. So there's the 1 in 5 you talked about.
Yeah.
It completely matches the data. A couple of dynamics, from our perspective. So Motorola Solutions Venture Capital, historically, we've said that Series B is our sweet spot. More and more these days, we're looking at Series A deals. And the reason we are is because they tend to have more maturity in their product or their technology than we used to see even 5 years ago in a Series A company. So we're doing a lot more in that area, and I think that's pretty consistent with a lot of the tech corporate VCs we see. One of the challenges, though, as the capital is available and it is a competitive market, is we are starting to see very, very early stage companies with very, very high valuations. In fact, just a few days ago, my colleague and I were talking to a company. Sounded very interesting, very interesting technology, like it might be in our sweet spot. We got to the part of the discussion to talk about, the financials, the fundraising, and the valuation, and we were both kind of shocked when the entrepreneur said that the last round that they had done, like 6 months ago, was at a $120 million post, and they were looking, for, up. I think this was a B round, if I remember correctly, or maybe even a C. But that just really struck me that because that's sort of out of the range of what we look at. Typically, the investments we do are in companies that are in the up to maybe $75 million kind of valuation is what we look for, and we're investing across data analytics, software, software to enhance efficiencies, workflow software for, like I said earlier, for our public safety customers, for the other verticals we serve, industrial and whatnot. We're looking for those kind of technologies, wearables, drones and robotics, so we cut across a lot of technologies. But we're mostly in the A to B round, but we're looking for good solid companies with good solid teams. And it was talked about before, I do see the same issue that was talked about, which is companies are having trouble filling out their executive suite in some cases with the right talent. We definitely see that from where we're going. But there's still a lot of great opportunity out there across the tech sector. And I think that you're going to see this trend continue. I think every week almost I get contacted by, in many cases, companies I never heard of that are looking to start a corporate venture capital unit. So I think you're going to see this trend continue.
And I think that's true. Tech is, life science side as well as tech. We see an awful lot of that. TX, let me get your thoughts on this. Your fund is focusing on one hot trend, well, more than that, but one particularly, marketplaces. And anytime I see a segment, I think back to the .com era and kind of what ended it when NASDAQ hit its high. And I don't know if it's apocryphal or what, but the story was there were 19 companies with business plans on Silicon Valley that were selling animal supplies online. I mean, is there a problem with just too much saturation in the particular area?
Yeah, so I guess for better or worse, I wasn't an investor back in the day, but we spent a lot of time, even in my last fund, looking at marketplaces. And We invested in Uber, the Series A, and we invested in a company called SoFi that just raised on a $1.3 billion valuation. So spending time, I think there are a couple of differences that we noticed. I think the first thing was the business models were very different. So for those companies back in the dot-com bubble, a lot of them were pure play online retailers where they're carrying a lot of inventory risk. We see that the new marketplaces these days, they have very little inventory and they're making money from day one. So a lot of these old marketplaces were actually operating on negative margins. They're just trying to play catch up, thinking that one day they'll actually make money. And I think the other thing that's been really helpful are the tailwinds behind the whole marketplace sector. I think if you look at especially the millennials right now, a lot of them don't want to own assets. No one wants to own a house. No one wants to own a car. So with that, we see a huge opportunity to share assets that you already own instead of actually buying it for yourself. And the other thing we see that according to a US labor study, I think by 2025, I think 45% of the US labor economy will be filled with contract workers or 1099 workers. So I think when you look at the supply side, again, I think that's incredible amount of supply that will continue to support these marketplaces. And even here in New York, we've seen a lot of success stories over the last couple of months. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the food delivery service Blue Apron, or the workout studio model ClassPass that has done extremely well. So I think with these tailwinds, I feel pretty confident that the outcome for marketplaces will be very different compared to the first dot-com bubble.
Right, we're talking, the topic here is changing venture world. And this may be a little controversial, but I'd like to ask Stacy and Lisa, women in venture. I know it's been a huge topic in 2014. Any thoughts about that?
I think it's people in venture. I think it's creative backgrounds. I don't really think there's a gender bias or a gender issue. I think there are people. We as venture investors invest in people. We look at the team as much as we look at the technology, in fact more so. Just as there are certain people who like to do certain things, there are just certain industries where people like it. I'm looking at my daughter. I take her to Silicon Valley with me, and she comes and she explores, and she looks at what I'm doing. She looks at what her father does. She looks around what her friends do. It's example. I think we actually live in an apprenticeship world, as opposed to a world where we go to school, we're told what to do. And it's that exposure and opportunity. So I love the report that came out of McKinsey is that children of women who work, the daughters end up in higher positions and the men end up doing more of the home. I think that it just makes everybody leap up into the things that are better for them. So I think that women do well in a lot of things. I think as a venture person, we tend to nurture. Listen, I'm a mom. That's all I do. I want to make you better. I want to make my kids better. So we nurture. And so I hope that what we do as women is we bring that into this sector.
Yes, I agree with everything that Lisa says. And, I think I don't put a lot of thought into women versus men or any of that when we look at a company. I think that it is helpful to have diversity across a board and across a management team, whether that's across gender or across background. But having that diversity, there are a number of studies that show greater diversity within a team leads to a better overall outcome and a better overall decision. So I think as companies are building their management teams, they should keep that in mind to think about not hiring the same person with the same background 4 or 5 times. And I think venture groups tend to have a little bit of a groupthink when they hire their own, and I think it's nice to see some venture firms are being a little bit broader and bringing a bit more diversity into their groups, which can only help, I think, make better decisions.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to raise just a couple of trends. I'm going to utter some trends. I'd like the panel to raise their hand if you think this will be a trend next couple of years. Virtual reality. Driverless cars. The Internet of Things. You had mentioned wearables. Okay, so and are these the big ones?
So we're also seeing an area when it comes to Internet of Things on the industrial side. So we talk about Internet of Things from a personal side with wearables and all, but I think that the efficiencies that can be had in manufacturing, production plants by instrumenting similar devices, but instrumenting machines that can listen and see and feel vibration and control machines and communicate with each other. I think it has the potential of starting a sort of the next generation of industrial revolution where we have machines that are more aware of how they're behaving and whether they're at maximum capacity and able to communicate with each other.
I would say that the big trend that I see for healthcare is distribution, and that distribution models are changing drastically. The hospital system, the doctor system, payer systems, they're all coming into different things, and what we see quite a bit are disruptions in distribution systems. And sometimes there are products that come to us that they don't even think of themselves as an alternative distribution. I think that and this whole issue of access and cost. So distribution, I think, is a real trend I see.
One other trend that we're seeing a lot of is in the area of drones and robotics as well. In fact, we made our first investment in a drone company earlier this year, but we are seeing the usage of these across broad range of industries, everywhere from retail, having a product specialist in the aisle with you and you're looking for your big screen TV, to having a drone that's helping inspect a pipeline, or in the case of the public safety, being able, after an incident occurs, or even think about a fire or an explosion, but something happens, being able to very quickly get eyes and ears on that scene and start to collect data and information. So I think you're going to see, more and more of this. Not to mention, everybody's heard about the plan to have delivery drones and things like that. So I think that's a huge trend that you're going to continue to see a lot of activity on in this whole space of drones and robotics in the next several years.
I think drones is a great trend. I think it's very scary. I think we'll get regulated very quickly. And I think the Internet of Things will proliferate, we'll have sensors all over the place, and that will create massive security breaches, and we'll have big trends around security, trying to fix that problem.
Totally agree, Alessandro. I think IT and cybersecurity will be a significant trend, and we'll have to watch it carefully from a regulatory standpoint, and from a deal standpoint. I mean, Planeteer is a good example, but other deals. And you mentioned driverless car. I mean, think about the productivity of GDP if we could reduce bumper-to-bumper congestion just by 30 or 40% in the top 50 markets. I mean, what would that do from a competitive standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me, we've been focusing on kind of, trends with respect to companies, industries, investors. Let's flip it around to and this will be my last question, because I do want to open up the floor to questions from the audience. But from the entrepreneur side, are the rules the same for attracting funding, or have they changed? Should entrepreneurs be focusing on different things? Just focus, focus on the market, focus on the problem, focus on whether or not people will pay for that solution, et cetera. Have the rules changed?
I think in general they haven't, but what I'm seeing more of these days is, at least past the seed stage, where we're seeing that companies need a lot more traction. So we've had a rush of funding in the early stage, the seed stage, and where many more companies are getting funded, but it hasn't grown as fast on the Series A side. So those Series A and beyond investors, now they can wait, they can sit back, they can ask for more data points. So I think those companies that got a fairly easy seed round, I think might be in for a little bit of an awakening when they go for the Series A, and they realize that those investors have a sort of pick of the litter and just might decide to sit back and wait to see more traction.
I think one of the one of the big problems is that, especially on the IT side, when you think about software companies or web companies, is because it takes a lot less money to start a company, it's relatively easy to get angel financing with a proliferation of Me Too companies. And one of the things that entrepreneurs need to pay attention to is whether what you're doing is differentiated, and whether it's sustainable, because you have to look around and see who else is doing things similar to you. So you have two things. Either you have companies that are complete overlaps or something else, or you have companies that, in order not to be overlapping, are focusing on such a small niche that they're going to be irrelevant. And I agree that when you might be able to start the company and get to through the seed financing, but when you get to Series A, it will be a rude awakening.
I think it's a bit of the reverse in the life science industry. I think with entrepreneurs, the rules have changed in that they need to be much more savvy about the public markets and working with bankers and understanding how to bring your cost of capital down as quickly as possible. 5 years ago, very common to see Series D, Series E, Series F. You still see that, but a lot of companies after Series A and Series B are going public to very quickly flip and get into the public market where, even if you have a setback or even if things take longer, you're still able to raise money with much less dilution. So entrepreneurs really need to understand how to work with bankers and how best to catalyze that kind of transaction, even with an earlier stage asset.
Yeah, I think Stacy's right on, and that probably is more applicable to the therapeutic companies, but then you've got the devices, the diagnostics, and the healthcare technology, which follow a little bit more the pattern of the tech companies. And there, what you're seeing is that you get this, it is easy to start something up and easy to get that seed round, but the key thing here is that no one's really taken a look to say, who else really has done what I've done? What do I really need to do? And how do I get that sales traction? So going back to this whole point about, we can do it technically, we get the funding, we get all this momentum behind us, but traction. And when you look at the pathway to an exit for a therapeutic, it's pretty clear. You're going to get a regulatory approval or you're not going to get a regulatory approval. The same thing with a device. But in this world of technology, there's no clarity, and you have to have a certain amount of traction, and more or not, it's not going to be the company infrastructure, it's the asset in an M&A type of transaction.
I think one quick thing I would add, just echoing what the other panelists have said, I think at the seed stage, it used to be, I used to see a lot of pitches that talked about patents, talk about like special IP that we had, but I think more and more it's becoming all about execution and metrics. So a lot of the investing at the seed level, I think the requirements for what we're looking for are very different these days. So I think entrepreneurs just have to prove that they can execute faster, they have the right team, instead of coming to us to say that, hey, we have a series of patents, we believe that this will be the differentiating factor. So that doesn't quite work anymore these days.
No, and that's what it comes down to. Every company has a business plan. And the key is, can you execute on it, right? Can you execute on it? Execution, execution, execution. Joe, do we have time for a couple of questions from the floor? 2 questions? Okay, I'm sorry. This has been just a terrific panel. As I mentioned, this is an important part of the Venture Summit. You being able to have an opportunity to ask questions. But do we have a couple of questions right here? We'll take this one right here. Do we have a microphone?
Mario Saab, tradescraft.com. We just deal with scarcity on the skilled trades. I have a question for Jill and Stacy. With technology advancing, how much overseas outsourcing can be used to fill up the gap for talent scarcity, and how do we keep good people?
So from a talent point of view, we like to see the core team, the core technical team in-house. It's equivalent to opening up a restaurant and calling in food. Companies move so quickly these days. They iterate quickly. My belief is at least that the core team has to be together to be agile, to be nimble, to be able to a salesperson or the CEO comes back from a meeting and that potentially needs to be immediately executable. from a technology point of view and vice versa. So I think at least at the early stage, those the teams need to be centrally located so that they can feed off each other.
Okay, and we have time for one more question. The green, yeah.
Hello, my name is Trevor Barlow with Conference Edge. I'm just curious, how involved are you now in government with regards to regulations? I know there's investments in Uber, where obviously there's legal challenges all over the place, also in the healthcare realm with approvals and drones, robotics, FAA stuff. So I'm just curious if there's any money being allocated in your budgets towards helping companies at those phases.
From the perspective of dealing with the FDA, I think a couple companies that I've worked with in the past have hired advocacy groups to deal with some of the roadblocks that have been created by not necessarily rational statements by divisions of the FDA, but beyond that, we don't spend significant time focusing on the government.
Yeah, I echo that. I don't think there's anything you can do to persuade the FDA to be different. I do think that we look at different governmental regulations as we expand globally, but we don't really allocate internal resources to that.
From our standpoint, from IT, computer science, cybersecurity, we think it's really important to partner with the government, and some of our best innovations been related to DARPA or DoD, NSA, and other related areas, which can be applied to enterprise. So, I just consider just DARPA as an example of an innovative place with multi-billion-dollar annual IT budget or technology development budget. So, I think the relationship, whether it's in those sectors or Department of Education, which has been significant. I mean, look at gainful employment, right? That legislation changed for-profit ed. I mean, it really had a significant impact. And that sector has now recovered nicely from that initial platonic shift, if you will, that occurred. So partnering with the major agencies so that they can look ahead of how technology is going to impact broader policy, I think is critical. I mean, as a managing partner, I have to spend some time in D.C., and I was just 3 weeks ago, there working on some of these initiatives. So I think it's real important, and I think a lot of VCs do spend some time to understand it.
Just a real quick comment. Yes, certainly, coming from where we come from in our business, we do work with several of our portfolio companies on collaborate with them on government requirements and whatnot. I think that's something we have to do.
Okay, thank you very much. This has been a great way to start off the 2015 Venture Summit. So thank you to the panelists. Just terrific.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and thank you to our panelists. I'm going to ask everyone, please, to listen to my announcements. Specifically, folks in the room number 6 in the back, please make your way slowly out of the room. We need to start our first round of company presentations. Technology presentations in this room number 4 and 5. Clean tech in the back in room number 6. We need to rotate the chairs, so just move out of that way, please. And life sciences and healthcare in room number 1. We're about to begin, so please make your way. Judges, please sit towards the front of your respective tracks, and we will be giving you judging forms. Please make your way into your respective rooms now. Thank you.
Stop it? What do we do? So what do we want to do? What do you want to live stream this?
core of all these smart devices is the mobile phone, the smartphone. But how smart is that phone actually, if you look at it? Because if once this core ends and I go outside and I want to grab a cab or Uber driver to take me back to my hotel and I grab my phone, what do I see? Blank screen. If I get to my hotel, it's around dinner time at 6, 7 p.m., and I grab my phone, what do I see? A blank screen. And this experience continues when I go to the health club and I need to scan that barcode to see who I am. Every time that blank screen. So there's no smartness to that phone. And that's where we come in. We want to come in and really create the experience where brands can become personal assistants to their consumers. Look at what Uber tries to represent themselves. Look at Instacart or other great services that are out there to help your life become easier. But if they're not there when you need them, at the right time, at the right moment, there is no relevance to them. I have to, every time, open up my phone and start up the app and configure them to do what I want to do. That takes a lot of time. And boy, I don't want to spend too much time on my mobile phone. So how do we create this experience? How do we do this? Now with our product, our B2B product, we can tap into sensors on the mobile phone. And sensors are becoming more and more important in the market. We estimate that by 2020 there'll be about over 1 trillion sensors among connected devices such as smart cars, smart light bulbs, smart TVs, and of course smartphones. By tapping into these sensors, we can get an idea about who you are as a consumer, what you are doing, what is your lifestyle like. We take that data, and through our platform, we can create contextual information for brands. We can do that on 3 levels. On the first level, there is real-time data. You are in a car, you are in a bus, you are on a train, you are sitting, you're in a room. And from that real-time data, we can build moments like, okay, this is your house, this is your office, you're in a restaurant, you're at a gym, you are sleeping. And those moments can tell us something about your behavior, about your patterns, how often do you go to the gym, because you may think that you're a very health freak, but maybe you just go once every 2 weeks. So the reality, we actually know the reality of your life experience and your patterns. And from those events, real-time events, and from those moments, we can build user profiles which are relevant for brands to really contextualize their service and make it indeed that when I grab my mobile phone and I actually can get an Uber service saying, hey, you want to go back to your hotel? That's relevant. That's a smart device. Now, a lot of you are looking at me and thinking, well, Abbas, I don't really want to share all my information. That's private. And look, is that really secure? Now, let me just address that, because that's a question I often get. The acceptance of people sharing their sensor data of their mobile devices is, of course, very low if you pop them the question, look, can I get your sensor data? That question is not going to work. You're going to have to market your product in such a way that you're going to have to ask the participation of users to get that unique experience. So how you market your product by using our technology is something we're happy to help brands with, and we have had some good experience. The commercial benefit, whether that's discount promotions or indeed a better user experience, is imperative to be able to get the user sensor data. And that participation is becoming more and more acceptable. Now, how acceptable? It comes down to what are you using. If you're using the camera and the microphone, no. People are not going to accept that. You wouldn't want that. But the accelerometer, the gyroscope, GPS are features of sensors that people are happy to share to be able to get that relevant experience. Now, I talked about user profiles. There are a number of user profiles. There are situational user profiles. Are you driving? How are you driving? Are you an aggressive driver? Are you an eco driver? Are you keeping to the speed limit? That's very relevant for companies such as taxi companies or peer-to-peer companies. Then behavioral profiles such as you are a parent, you are a workaholic, you are a fitness freak. Such type of profiles are great for CPG brands. To summarize our product, we like to help brands to become more relevant to users, to address them at the right time at the right location. Now, why are we here? We're here to see if we can get a further investment, Series B, plus $5 million. We have a business model that is based on a recurring revenue model, which is a fee per active user. Our costs are pretty manageable and not that high. Currently, we have clients in the sector of mobility. We work with peer-to-peer companies. We work with insurance companies, fleet management companies, but we also have experience with advertising and retail chains to create contextual experiences on mobile. We are aiming for 1 million active users on our platform by the end of the year, growing to 6 million active users by the end of 2016. We have a great team, which I'm honored to be part of, which has the CEO of NetMining, which NetMining got acquired by Initial 1 or 2 years ago, and the CTO of NetMining. Great team with a lot of great scientists and salespeople. We have raised to date 3.2 million euros, and as I mentioned, we're looking for plus $5 million by the end of the year. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. If there's any questions, I'd love to address them at this point.
Are there any privacy issues with collecting the data from mobile devices?
That's an excellent question. So the question was, are there any privacy issues? Well, when we collect the data, we don't collect the data based on a name or a person. We collect it on an anonymous basis. So it's X and Y. If the brand or the company we work with, the brand or company that wants to work with us wants to match that to certain user IDs, that's up to them. But we do not capture any database or name.
Can you talk a little bit about case studies from your paying customers and how that's increased engagement on the app?
Sure. So one of the customers we have is a insurance company that is looking towards getting better insights into their insurance clients and how they're driving, and actively approaching them and coaching them on how they could, better drive and be a safe driver, rewarding them with discounts or commercial benefits as an insurance client. We also work with a peer-to-peer company. We're going to work with them on a trial basis, whereby we can give them better insights into their drivers. Their drivers represent the peer-to-peer company. It's very important to them that the driving experience for their customers is good. So getting insights into how they drive their car, are they aggressive driver, do they keep the speed limits, etc., is important to improve their service and create a good experience. So that's what we're doing. We're also working with a... That's very short for questions, though.
Yeah, there's not really supposed to be.
Oh, okay,
questions.
sorry.
It's okay.
My fault. Sorry.
The entrepreneurs will be available during networking sessions and during breaks, but because we've got a very packed schedule today, we really can't go over the time. Up next is Smart Picture Technologies. Did you look the next?
Okay, good morning. My name is Kerry Molotowski. I'm the founder and CEO of Smart Picture Technologies, and I just got 10 seconds more to talk. Thank you. So what is Smart Picture? So we have created a software as a service platform where you can use a cell phone. Every time we take a picture, we create a scale inside the picture, and then you can measure, estimate, and collaborate by using our cloud service. And this is giving a lot of benefits to our customers. So what is the problem in the marketplace? So a lot of things are still happening on site. So you have to send somebody, try hours, take measurements, put them in the notes, collect data, put it in the other system. So it takes a lot of time. So on site is really where a lot of companies are spending time right now. And what we want to do, we want to change that now. Companies can do that online. So we have built an application that consumers can use, send information direct to the manufacturer. Nobody has to drive, nobody has to go on site. It's much faster, and benefits are huge. So who is using our service? So as a startup, of course, we have to concentrate where we start. So right now, our customers are mainly from home improvement, insurance, and real estate. And there's about 5.5 million team members in those market segments, and that's where we are targeting. So where's the benefit? So the service is extremely easy to use. It's like a snap measure share. Consumer takes a picture. It automatically uploads to our Smart Picture Cloud. Our subscription model to the manufacturers, allowing the manufacturers to make measurement direct on the pictures. So it can save up to $250 every time there's a claim. So if you think there's a 30 million insurance claims in the US every year, if we can save $250, it's a huge savings. And of course, it improves customer satisfaction, it improves the productivity a great deal. So how we sell this service, so we have two parts of the service. So we have a mobile app that is available free of charge right now in the Apple Store. It's available in the Android in a couple of weeks. And then there's the 2 tiers to upgrade the application in your mobile phone. Where 80% of our revenue is going to come is the cloud service. So this is almost like a Salesforce.com for measurement. So we have 3 tiers. We have a solo user, that's $29. There's a team user, $59, and there's an enterprise solution that is $99. And there's a different kind of solution in those 3 tiers. So it's $99 per month per user. So that's how we go to the market. So normally you can take same kind of things with 2 different ways. So you can use a hardware or you can use a software. Because when you use a software like Smart Picture, it's all software, so it is extremely fast and easy to scale, right? So the market is much, much bigger in the software as a service than in the hardware side. So this is not just a PowerPoint presentation. The first 20 enterprise customers are using the system right now, and we are going to publicly launch the product in August this year. The team is extremely experienced. We have all done this before. This is my company number 7. Jeff has been starting software as a service companies, and our CTO is extremely experienced in the image censoring. And the board of directors, we have 2 guys that have done IPO. Bernie Brenner is co-founder of TrueCar. Joe O'Sullivan used to be a VP of operation in Apple. So there's an extremely experienced team behind what we are doing. So we are starting this year to make revenue. It's not a lot this year, but it's going to be recurring revenue, so the cash flow will be good. We are starting to expand the team next year. That's why we are looking for $5 million minimum. And we are looking at raise in the second half of this year. And in the highlights, the technology that we have an IP protection, so we have 5 issued patents and 6 that's in the utility phase. We were one of the Red Herring 100 finalists this year. We are proudly from Austin, Texas. Why we are here, there's not a lot of money going on in Austin. There's a little VCs. We have raised so far $2 million. And now the next raise is going to go to expand the team, run faster, and get our customers much more happier. So that's what Smart Picture Technologies. Thank you. I have 1 minute left. Can I take 10 questions? Any questions? No questions? That was an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Nova transfer?
Hi, good morning to you. My name is Oren Sadif, came from Israel, Startup Nation. We are not a young startup after raising $65 million and going for the next round with 60. but we do have many startups as a spin-off applications out of our company. Novotrans is about terahertz. Terahertz is a part of the spectrum which I'll tell in a second. What we have developed is basically a new kind of transistor. Transistor that works actually 1,000 times faster than any transistor that Intel or other companies are producing. And by creating this kind of transistor, we can create a new kind of light. And this presentation is about the colors that we don't see. I'm not sure if you know, but we humans can see a very small fraction of the whole spectrum. Actually, 1 out of 1 trillion, this is what we humans can see. However, most of the spectrum is still, we are trying to commercialize it. There is one part that we have not been able to commercialize. By having this new kind of transistor that we created, can create a new kind of frequencies which called terahertz. Now, by creating new kind of frequencies, practically it's as if we're creating a new kind of colors. So that's the spectrum that you all can see. Everything is commercial. The lower part of the spectrum, it's the radio frequency, microwave, where we have the UHF, the VHF, the FM, the Wi-Fi, the GPS, etc. And above what we call the tera area, we have the infrared, the UV, the X-ray, and the visible part. In between, there is one part that has not been able to be commercialized. Now, if we look on the whole spectrum, whether it's X-ray on the far right, your right, and then we have the UV, the visible, and the infrared, all of these parts have been commercialized in excess of billions and billions of dollars. On the left side, we have the radio frequency that we all know very well. In between, there is the terahertz gap. The size of it is between 300 to 3,000 gigahertz. Now, we are terahertz blind today. With our technology, we will be able to see furthermore, much more than we have been able to see up until today. The number of applications that we are talking really is divided into 8 clusters, whether it's homeland security or medical applications to food security, agriculture, etc., pharmaceutical inspection. It's basically another tool of imaging, like X-ray, like infrared, like UV. It's simply called terahertz. A little bit about the company. The company started, I founded it after I sold my previous company. I've been called as an angel investor to the Weizmann Institute of Science when they showed me what they've done. Since then, we have developed a chip, a tool, fabrication that chip, which took us much longer than expected. And then we have developed a system, which is the system on the right lower side, which is called spectroscopy. Up until today, we have raised $65 million. We have 30 patents in our portfolio. All of our investors are private investors. Up until today, we have no VCs in the company. And the whole company structure is really to take this IP, build the Novatron, the chip that we have, and then build the system. In our management, I'm acting as a CEO. We have a president already used to run a public company in NASDAQ. We have Mr. Perlmutter, former number 2 at Intel. He is our chairman of the advisory board, and 2 guys, again from Intel. We have also a very extensive advisory board from the former CTO of IBM, again with Intel, CTO of British Aerospace, and various other very key people relevant to our industry. The structure of the company is actually a parent company because we are talking really about platform technology. And as such, we have on the left side here, fully owned subsidiary actually in charge of the production. All these right side are spin-offs that we have, which is in the homeland security, in medical application, diamond application, seeds, etc. Terahertz, by having terahertz, we basically can see more. So whether it's a full body imaging system for homeland security, for airports, whether it's medical application, which is skin cancer, breast cancer, oral cancer, and many other things that X-ray cannot do, we can see more and penetrate less while it's human safe. The whole company structure is basically, we're taking the chip, we're building the whole value chain, the whole ecosystem for us from the chip to production system, and then we are moving with partners to applications. So each one of the spin-offs is being spin-off to the market with a partner. These are, as I said, this is part of the spin-offs that we have so far. A little bit about the technology, because I've just got 2 minutes. We're basically going back to vacuum tube. So back to the future. We're going back to vacuum tube, and we're creating from that a nano vacuum chip, basically. Because of that, we can reach very, very high speed. Very, very high speed means it could be served to supercomputing, it could be for communication, which is not Wi-Fi, it's Wi-Fi. And we can go further. I have a 20 seconds video just to demonstrate what we have here. I see that the sound is not working. Or it's not working at all, never mind. This is the tool that we have produced. It cost us just $25 million to produce that tool. We actually, I'm here in New York. On top of coming here, we have signed a very big deal, a $44 million deal together with IBM, going to mass production together with them. So IBM assisting us building our production tool in order to be scaled up. This is the 2 systems that we already marketing. The applications are really endless. It's a whole new part of the spectrum that we can basically take it from now on. I'll skip because it's a very short presentation, so this is 7 minutes. Any question? Yeah.
So just based on the materials in the handout, it seems like there's this market has been around for a while, and there's a lot of competition. So could you explain a little bit more about where you fit in and to the ecosystem and what your actual revenues are?
Okay. First of all, you're absolutely right. Terahertz is big for a while. It's been invented over 100 years. Today in the market, there are 2,000 patents, 2,000 articles, and 1,000 research institutes working on terahertz. Yet, less than 10 companies working generating these terahertz frequencies. So the question is not about creating this part of the spectrum of frequency, but to do it in a cost-effective way. We are about 6,000 to 7,000 times more effective or more cost-effective. So the performance dollar that we come to the pictures are by far greater than any other company. The other companies, they're all friends of us. We are all collaborating, trying to educate the market together, whether it's on an IP level and an application level. As to the revenues, they are being generated on the subsidiaries level. So, for example, TerraSafe is one of our subsidiaries working with the US DoD for what they call screening at speed. So in 2020, we're supposed to see full body entry system in the airport, so we don't need to take the jacket off or the water out of our bag. And this is because we're going to have X-ray and terahertz. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is David.
All right, good morning. My name is Bryce Johnson. I'm the CEO of GameIt. Co-founder with me is Tyler Hall. So this is my third startup. First 2 startups I created national brands in the consumer space. Both sold those to $2 billion companies, and I'm crazy enough to start another one. So with GameIt, before we get into the essence of what GameIt is, I want to talk a little bit about the history of advertising. So 74 years ago this summer, actually, the first TV advertisement ran. It was for a watch company. It was a 10-second commercial. And then 22 years ago, we see that the first banner ad ran. What we know about that is, in the last 75 years, these ads have been ignored. And for us at GameIt, what we see as ads is they're interruptions to our lives. We're doing something and then we get interrupted, whether it's on the iPhone. I know many of you have this. Clicker's not working here. Can you just hit yes? All right, go to the next slide. All right, here we go. Many of you had this experience on YouTube where you go to watch a video and you have a 15-second pre-roll. Everyone I know tries to click past that pre-roll. They're not interested in it, or they look away and they do something else until that's over, which is very ineffective for the advertisers as well as the brands. It's really come down to this where they're trying to get us to stop and really pay attention to them. So right now, it's estimated that 72% of all ads are ignored. My estimation is that it's even higher than this. But what if we could change the way this is presented? What if we could make ads fun, rewarding, and engaging, and change the way it's presented to the user? Welcome to Game It. So I'm going to walk a little bit through Game It. Game It is a mobile app. It is consumer-driven, where consumers can interact with it. They can find products within the app, similar to shopping in another store. But rather than just shopping, you're playing games around the products and brands. So in this case, I picked a Nike shoe, and I'm going to game it. So I come in, I select the shoe, and the first thing I do is I'm presented with a 30-second commercial or ad about that product. And this is where the game comes in. I'm then presented with 10 trivia questions. And I play those trivia questions, and the trivia questions are all about that ad that I had just watched. Or that brand, I should say. The brand, the product. And I can play that game as many times as I'd like to try to get the highest score. In this case, I'm playing and I got a 701 points, and I'm trailing from the leader. And I can keep on playing, and I'm presented with more and more questions about that brand and or product until I can get the score that I'm happy with. And based on my score, I then win something. And my winnings are, like in the case of 1F Jeff, you can get a graduated scale of discount all the way up to 50%. One individual will win one free product. And so that gets people playing and playing more competitively. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have Tyler now talk a little bit about why this is so engaging for the users, what they're doing, and how much time they're spending with each brand and product.
Great. So some of our key metrics that we're looking at, and we're kind of changing some of the metrics too, because currently advertising is clicks and impressions, and those aren't really a great engagement metric. So if we look here, we see that we've got 7 million brand questions answered to date, which accounts for approximately 790 days of total brand engagement. That is a huge number when you think about it. Now we break that down, 435,000 brand games played, yeah. But the real important number there is the average of 7 minutes per user engaging with the brand. Normally we see a commercial run 15, 30 seconds and we're tired. A minute, 2 minutes, come on, that's not gonna happen. But we've got 7 minutes per user who engages with the brand. So as soon as they start watching the video, they're thinking, oh, I've got to learn this content. I've got to pay attention because now I've got to answer these questions. Now, to put this in a little bit of perspective, and this may be, it's my mom who gave this anecdotal piece, so maybe it's not the best case because it was my mother. So, but she played a game for Super Smash Brothers, a video game. So we did a commercial on that. She played a game on it. She doesn't care about that game. She has no interest in video games. But 2 weeks after the game, after she played it, she was still able to repeat to me the answers to the questions because she had played enough that she had memorized the content. So we're talking about a type of engagement that you've never seen before, a type of engagement that will blow your mind. And this is the type of stuff that is the opposite of what the current trend is in the marketplace. Now, I mean, if you think about it, because we're seeing a driving downward in engagement. That's why we had the first guys come up. Oh, wait 2 minutes. So we had the first guys come up. They were talking about creating moments, driving people and understanding more about a person so we can attack people from an advertising perspective at a fundamental level where we're engaging with them in a way that they don't ignore because they're like, oh, this is relevant to what I'm doing. But then you've got the privacy issues to worry about. So instead, we've said, let's go the other direction. Let's give freedom to the users to engage because they want to, and engage and reward them in a way that excites them and brings them back to the idea that marketing is a two-way street. Marketers provide content to you to teach you about products, to help you learn about products so that you get excited about them, so you understand why they bring value to your life. That's really what advertising is about. But because there's so much of it, there's so much noise, and there's so much going on, we've just been trained and taught to ignore it. And we all know this is a huge market, 42 billion and rising, and it's going to keep going up, especially mobile commerce. So, I mean, this is just, in my opinion, this is a direction that is fantastic and amazing. I mean, to be able to change people's opinions about advertising is certainly very challenging, however. So financially, we've got tons of ways to make money. We've got the advertising revenue, we've got the product sales, we've got in-app store purchases, and then we can also sell some consumer data. As we learn more about people, then we can aggregate that data and sell that to companies who buy it and use it for old, terrible ways of advertising. But there will still be a marketplace for that. So we look at the product revenue. We could have done the normal, year-over-year type growth thing, but instead we thought it more important to look at it from a user perspective. So we're looking here and we're seeing at 100,000 users with 22%, we've got 22% of our users purchasing product. So they play for these things, they get excited about it, they're engaging with it, and then they're purchasing at 22%. And my time's up, so I'm sorry. So you'll just have to come talk to us if you want to learn more about this.
Up next is Barrier. Sorry, just open the clicker.
I did not.
Oh, it's on there. Right there.
Good morning. My name is Jim Leversky with Barrier One, General Manager. That's 1 second. In that 1 second, there's been 2 hours of YouTube that's been downloaded, 5,700 tweets, there's been 683 photos uploaded to Instagram, 66,000 Google searches, 38,000 Facebooks, and $34 million emails already done in that split second. Every one of those have been hacked, and everyone can be a carrier. Now added that the malware now mutates and change every 4 seconds. And it's getting worse. So CERN, which is the European Nuclear Research Agency, set out and said, this is what we're really looking for. And that is the Holy Grail for network defense is really anomaly-based with very low, false positives. That's Barrier One. So we developed a platform that not only detects known, but never before seen events with extreme, almost 100% accuracy. Our platforms consist of something in this size, the form factor, basically we're a software platform that fits in the hardware platform. We have multiple platforms that scale from anywhere in the SMB market up to a GE size company that would support 500,000 devices for clustering. We can also have a software based in a cloud base as well as some mobile. Our traction, we have 2 patents. One is the core patent based on intelligence, and the second is denial of service attack that go beyond threshold-based areas. We've been involved in multiple testing in various colleges that have been involved in the cybersecurity and competition. In addition, we've been SE Magazine's Innovator of the Year, 2012, 2013, and 2014 we were inducted into their Hall of Fame. It takes 3 consecutive years to win that. There's very few people that have accomplished it, so it's an elite standing. We've also been through a forensic shakedown where our data sets were admissible in a court of law. So breaches are costing people a lot of money, the economy, et cetera. No big surprise. The average breach cost is going between $3 and $6 million. But the takeaway is this. When you look at the Target breach, it costs $191 million in gross expenses. And that's not including the hit on the brand and everything else. $46 million of that comes back in insurance. So if we think we're going to solve the problem or recap to insurance, it's not going to happen. Moore's Law is letting us go faster than we can ever secure it. And part of the problem now is the fact that we can't react fast enough. It takes machines anywhere from 3 hours to multiple days. It takes people, the best of it, from 25 to 200 plus days to figure out, find an attack, and be able to do something about it. The cyber attacks are changing, the limits are going faster, and even humans can't keep up with it anymore. If we could, there's not enough humans to go around, so the costs are going up. All this sets the stage for a new mind share and a shift in mindset that's going to create a whole new category. And that category is just starting to happen. So